Book of Boba Fett faces challenging home stretch. I've got a lot to say about the Book of Boba Fett. I'm sure I'll talk about it with Justin at some point here in the near future. It's kind of surprising that we haven't been doing episode by episode breakdowns the way that we did with the first season of The Mandalorian. And I don't think, did we do it for season two? I don't think we did actually, because season two was during that was in the heat of the COVID year, the first year of COVID. I wasn't doing any shows at that point. So yeah, we really didn't talk about, well, we talked about it, but we didn't do any shows about season two of The Mandalorian. But yeah, it kind of surprised me we haven't talked about this yet, though we talked about it the other night off stream. I think we're going to do an actual breakdown of it. He was mentioning, though, casually, that I guess a lot of Star Wars fans aren't liking it. I haven't seen evidence of that, but I have noticed that there is like an absence of conversation around the show, kind of the way that there would be around The Mandalorian. Like there are always all sorts of memes and discussion pieces and whatnot that I see just in the ancillary on my Instagram feeds or TikTok and shit like that, for The Mandalorian or for any MCU show. But I really haven't seen anything like that for Book of Boba Fett. And I was talking with Justin about it, and having seen all the episodes up to this point, my general vibe on the show is that it's okay. And maybe that's what Star Wars fans think too. Maybe they think that it's just okay, and for them, that's a letdown. I never had an attachment to the Boba Fett character personally. I never understood what the appeal of him was. Like, he was barely in the movies. And when he wasn't, he didn't do anything. Like, he said some stuff to Vader, and then and then he got his ass kicked by Luke. And that was pretty much it. Yeah, it was a really anticlimactic sort of, you see this guy in Empire Strikes Back, and then he gets this big scene right up front in Return of the Jedi, and, he just gets his ass handed to him. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess he wasn't all that special. It's real. I feel Captain Phasma was, homage to the lameness of Boba Fett. You see this character decked out in awesome armor, and then when they get their time to shine, they just get their ass kicked. Although I guess Captain Phasma did some ass kicking prior to falling in that ship wreckage. But because of that, I just never really connected with Boba Fett. I was never one of those kids that was like, oh, this guy's cool and shit like that. I always thought his helmet was kind of dumb, to be honest. I like it now. I like it more now. Like, I get it. I understand the aesthetic of it. But as a kid, I remember thinking that this helmet just looked really stupid. So I just never really vibed with it. So I don't have the attachment. I don't have the Boba Fett attachment that I think a lot of Star Wars fans have. And there is a danger. There is a danger in bringing a character that people love so much back and trying to create like something radically new around him. And that's really what it is like, they're trying to take a Boba Fett that people kind of recognized or imagined as being like this cold-blooded, stone-cold bounty hunter, who could stand toe-to-toe with Vader, at least in attitude. Maybe if they fought, Vader would make quick work of him like Luke did, but at least in his demeanor, he stands toe-to-toe with Vader. And, he kind of has this threatening vibe about him. And, you want to see, what's this guy all about? He's a bounty hunter. That's kind of cool. He goes from job to job, hunting the most dangerous people and getting money for it and all that kind of stuff. You want to see what this guy's thing is all about. But the show really kind of tries to, I don't know if soften is the right word, but it definitely changes his character from what he used to be into something different. And the character remarks on it. Like, the show is not, trying to pull a fast one on you in any regard, with respect to that. Like, they make a point of letting you know that, Boba Fett is undergoing some personality changes here. Or maybe not personality changes, but motivational changes, rather. And it's interesting to see, for me, for someone that isn't super attached to the character, I guess it's interesting for me to see that side of it. But I could definitely understand how people who are hardcore Boba Fett stans would be a little put off by it. I think that's a tough sell in general, but it doesn't help when Let me actually look this up before I go any further with that remark. So yeah, I know that Robert Rodriguez is like an executive producer on the show, and he also directed a couple of the episodes. His episodes are probably the weakest. I'm not a big Robert Rodriguez fan. I don't like his vibe. Not a fan of pretty much anything he's done outside of Desperado, which was all right, but I'm just not a big fan of his. There's something weird between all of these episodes where there's like these different stories that they're trying to weave, and it's interesting that they're all written by Favreau. Like there's like this. They're trying to weave a story of Boba Fett coming out of the Sarlacc pit, and it's funny they do play direct homage to the Patton Oswalt Parks and Rec bit, but they start off with him coming out of the Sarlacc pit. And spoiler alert for those of you that haven't watched this yet, I'm going to spoil what I know of it, what I remember of it. So they start off with that, and like there's this whole storyline of him being captured, or his armor is stripped off of him. He's like unconscious on the ground. His armor is stripped off of him by Jawas, and Tusken sand raiders, grab him and imprison him, and then it's like a whole Dances with Wolves sort of thing where he gets ingratiated into their society, and they dress him up in his tribal garb, and he learns how to fight with the stick. And but all of that is also kind of interwoven with like stuff that's happening in the present, where he's already taken care of Bib Fortuna, and he's taken over as daimyo, which is kind of an interesting word to use. Daimyo of Moss, what is it? Moss something or other. I can't remember. Mos Espa. Mos Espa, yeah. He's like the daimyo of Mos Espa, and he's like trying to collect tributes from people, and the mayor's disrespecting him, and he's got to do this and that. And it's just kind of weird because the first couple of episodes, I'm kind of with it. I'm following it. I get it. But then by this third episode, it's like I'm kind of trying to figure out what the actual through line is for the main story we're following here. Like, there's so much that takes place in flashbacks, and you get so little that takes place in the modern time, that it's like, is the story of the modern time not that important? It seems like the story for the modern time isn't really that important because we're not spending a whole lot of time in that world. So like, what is all of this setup that I'm getting? It's kind of weird. This episode also, did two things that I thought was completely out of character and awfully disrespectful to the Star Wars realm, and that is that really shitty speeder chase scene in the city that was oddly slow. And when they introduced, and it gets even worse. It gets even worse in episode 4. When they introduced the speeder bike gang, there's this weird ass music that just sounds like music from like the 90s. It sounds like something you would hear from like a 90s version of Swordfish. Is Swordfish was early 2000s, I think. Maybe Hackers. It's just some weird, and you definitely get it in episode 4 when Boba Fett takes Fennec to those people, and they outfit her gut with cybernetics so that she can survive. But like the whole montage of them putting the cybernetics in her has literally the worst music I've ever heard. It is so awful, and it is so out of place, and it's like and I know that I'm someone who has harped on Star Wars soundtrack before, like, the whole John Williams score, and I'm over it, etc., etc. And I really love the Mandalorian soundtrack for the reason that it kind of got away from the whole cliched kind of sound. But this is like this is the classic kind of manifestation of be careful what you wish for. This really made me wish that John Williams score was back, because it was really some of the worst music. It was like and like he's like putting like all this shit like these weird cybernetic stuff in her stomach while this ridiculous music's playing, and he's got like this really bad looking like robot claw arm. It kind of looks like Stan Lee's character from Thor Ragnarok. But it was just awful. Like, the sooner that scene ended, the better. The funny thing about it is, like, that episode was all about. It was like I think the entire episode. I think the entire episode may have been a flashback because Finnick was around in season 2 of The Mandalorian with Boba Fett. So at that point, she obviously had been up and about with her new cyber gut. But so this must have been a flashback of how they met and all that sort of stuff. Because by the end of it, they're like, we got to find some people to wait. So wait, was that a flashback, or did they come back to the current? Okay, they went back to the current. Actually, that's right, because there was the scene where they were sitting around the table with all of the other bosses. And that Rancor kind of frightened him, and he's trying to rally all the bosses to either join with him or at least stay neutral while he fights the Pikes. And it's from there when, so that was in the so there was a point where they go back to modern times. So that was when he was like, we have money and money can buy muscle, and then they play the Mandalorian theme, which is funny because that last episode, episode 5, it's titled "The Return of the Mandalorian," and honestly, it's just an episode of The Mandalorian. Like, there is no Boba Fett in that episode at all. It's just straight up an episode of The Mandalorian. And, as such, it's the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Like, it's the one episode that has a very clear through line, that has a very clear story that it's telling. There's no timeline jumping or anything like that. It has a very understandable story if you followed The Mandalorian through season 2. He starts off with the Darksaber, like, it's a wicked... super wicked sequence of him going through and like picking up the bounty on that dude in the meat market and just like fucking hacking that dude. Like, first he fucked his own leg up with that Darksaber. He fucked it up real hard. Then he hacks that dude in two, and it's like, holy shit, man. Like, that's rough. And it's kind of funny that they're going through such great lengths to like kind of soften Boba Fett's character when Din Djarin is just like straight up butchering motherfuckers, butchering motherfuckers on Maine. It's like, damn. So I guess Disney's not opposed to like ruthless violence in this. They just want to soften the Boba Fett character for whatever reason. But yeah, he wrecks that dude with that Darksaber. And not only does he cut him in half, and the table he was on too, but then he also still just like beheads him. He's full on. I mentioned this before. He's full on Witcher, all right? He's just space Witcher. He's just Witcher in space. I can even see, like, they didn't show it, but I imagine that after he cut that dude in half, like the camera cut to like a low angle, looking up at Din Djarin, and he pulls out a knife and he flips it. And he leans down, you hear a click, and it fades to black. And then, like, it cuts back to a normal shot, and he's standing in front of Roach. That's basically what it seemed like, because he walked out of there with that severed head in a bag, and it's like, okay, that's pure Witcher shit right there. He even uses his Witcher senses yet again to locate the hideaway of the last remaining Mandalorians, of which I guess there are only 2, the blacksmith and some other dude. But yeah, that episode was really cool. Like, it got weird towards the middle parts. It got really weird when, what's her name? Amy Sedaris or something like that. She shows up. There's a whole lot of weird stuff going on there. But for the most part, like, it was a pretty cool episode, and definitely the best episode of this season. Which is funny because it's not a Boba Fett episode. It's just a Mandalorian episode. It's like a lost episode of The Mandalorian that they're like, I don't know what to do with it. Let's just put it in the middle. It's kind of like those old sitcoms from like the 70s or 80s or whatever, or those old TV shows where like there'd be 26 episodes in a season, and somewhere around episode 10 or 11, there's just this weird episode that has nothing to do with anything that you were following before. Like, you're in the middle of some other story arc that's kind of been progressively developing episode by episode, but then by episode 10, like, you're way off into the weeds following some character that you forgot about or maybe didn't even show up before, and you're like, what is this? Why are they giving me this weird filler episode? Like, when are we gonna get back to the other stuff? That's kind of what this episode seemed like, only the opposite. Like, it wasn't like when are we going to get back to? It was like, oh man, we can just stay in this filler episode. Hope the next episode's a filler episode. Maybe that just says everything about my attitude towards the Book of Boba Fett. Maybe I secretly side with the fans that aren't super keen on the show. Although I haven't seen any examples as to why, so I don't quite know what the vibe is there. Let me see what the Hollywood Reporter has to say. Let's see what their supposition is. It's past the midway point in Disney's The Book of Boba Fett, and as fans head into the final 3 episodes, they might be asking themselves a difficult question. Is Lucasfilm's second live-action Star Wars series everything they worried the first would be? From the time the Mandalorian's title was announced in October 2018 until its debut on Disney Plus 13 months later, fans speculated about what the series would offer. Was it going to be a bounty hunter procedural or a Game of Thrones-esque epic? As more details about the project were released, the series' debt to the original Star Wars trilogy became more obvious, prompting some to wonder just how much it would center on nostalgia as opposed to anything new or unexpected. What eventually arrived, of course, was a show that made multiple nods to Star Wars over the past but took things in a different direction. Whether it was the very existence of Grogu and the cloning subplot that he drove, the intermittent dives into the Mandalorian lore, or simply a refusal to use pre-existing characters for anything other than a cameo, The Mandalorian felt like something new from a galaxy far, far away that had been like a bullet it seemed to have dodged. A bullet it seemed had been dodged. And then Boba Fett showed up. While his appearance in The Mandalorian second season verged on self-indulgent, really, was there any reason that he had to appear in that larger story? The show's strong identity, based around the title character's connection with his adopted son figure, and the lengths he'd go to protect him, ultimately saved it from becoming fan service with little purpose beyond nostalgia. The Book of Boba Fett, however, has no such defense mechanism. Really? Is that what they're saying? That it's too much? Well, I don't get what Star Wars fans want, man. It's either something's too nostalgic laden or something isn't nostalgic laden enough. Like, what's the deal here? The issues were telegraphed by the prologue to the series that appeared at the end of The Mandalorian's second season. In less than a minute, the viewer was given multiple visual cues to bring 1983's Return of the Jedi to mind, whether it was Jabba the Hutt's palace on the desert planet of Tatooine, the brief return of the fan-favorite minor character Bib Fortuna, Gamoran guards and Twi'lek dancers were set shot. Okay, yeah, well. The message was clear. If audiences wanted the old hits one more time, then here they were, in a series centered on arguably the biggest one-hit wonder the franchise has ever produced. That teaser proved to be entirely prescient. 4 episodes in, the Book of Boba Fett continues to focus on recreated style over substance, working Tusken Raiders, Jawas, Rodians, Wookiees, Twi'leks, and familiar droids, the Rancor. Familiar ones? Huh. The Rancor, some extra huts, and of course the infamous Sarlacc pit. Well, I mean, you had to have that. You had to figure out how he got out of that Sarlacc pit, okay? Into the proceedings. It even brought back Max Rebo, the blue elephantine keyboard player from Return of the Jedi, which is one of the deeper cuts one can imagine for multiple appearances across the season. For those who wanted to revisit childhood favorites one more time, it's Mana from Heaven. I spelled that wrong. But for anyone wanting a show that stands on its own merits, things might be slightly less of a slam dunk. Do I agree with that? Maybe. I will say that I never got the sense, like, in season 1 of The Mandalorian, you had that episode where the first time that the Mandalorian goes to Tatooine and he goes to the Mos Eisley Cantina, and there's that weird, like, pseudo Han Solo character sitting in that spot that Han Solo was sitting in. Like, that entire episode was rife with, like, nostalgic callbacks that I thought were way more ham-fisted than what this guy is claiming the Book of Boba Fett to be. I didn't really What is going on with this track? Why is the hat on a delay? Anyways, I never really got the sense that the Book of Boba Fett was like, stumbling over its desperate attempts to, revitalize nostalgic for nostalgia's sake. I mean, some of it, I guess you could say the fact that he's roaming around on Tatooine is your biggest tribute to that. Like, he's got to stumble upon all of the old Tatooine classics, huh? And maybe this could have been a story about him trying to be a crime lord on a completely different planet that isn't Tatooine. And you probably could have done that and had all the same bits, and there wouldn't have been any other complaints about nostalgic hits. But I guess maybe for someone that isn't steeped in nostalgia for Star Wars, it doesn't really A, come off that way to me, and B, when it does come off that way, I guess it just doesn't bother me all that much. 4 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett later, and we can add the following to that list. After escape from the Sarlacc, he was taken as a slave by Tuskens before earning their trust and respect. But 2, the Tusken was killed by a rival gang who he then killed in revenge. Meanwhile, in the present day, 3, Boba is preparing to fight a rival crime syndicate who appear to be making claims to his territory. That's basically it, with the majority of the story so far either given over to fan service that goes nowhere, Jabba the Hutt's cousin's appearance, and it looks like they're going to demand Jabba's empire. Oh, now they're leaving because someone told them off camera that someone else wanted the empire. But hey, we got to see some Hutts, I guess. Or massively extended set pieces focusing on mood over plot, while simultaneously being surprisingly light on mood. Boba's vision quest in the 2nd episode, anyone? I don't remember his vision quest, to be honest with you. Maybe that speaks loudly of it. Ultimately, more about Boba Fett has been revealed in less screen time than when he was a guest star on someone else's show than he's managed in his own series. That's not true. I don't think that's true. No, because I mean, one thing I will say is Boba Fett spends a lot of time without his helmet on in this show. And it's almost like the other side of the Mandalorian coin in that regard. Like, it's a testament to Pedro Pascal's ability as an actor to be able to convey so much emotion without ever seeing his face. Like, hearing some inflections in his voice, even though his voice isn't, like, he's pretty deadpan in his delivery, he still does enough with it to like convey mood, convey intent. And you never really stray from the Mandalorian in that show. Like, you're always following his plot. It's always like through his kind of view. But you have to get his character's development in different ways, right? Because you can't see his face for the most part. So you get it largely through how he interacts with Grogu, which is kind of a cool thing to see. I think in the Book of Boba Fett, you see it's almost the opposite. Like, he has his helmet off as often as Din Djarin has his helmet on, basically. And for most of this series so far, you see him interacting with other people, and you do kind of get to see, conventionally speaking, character reactions from his face, the actor, how he goes from scene to scene, and how he looks at this character, how he looks at that character, how he reacts to this, reacts to that. And again, this is a character who, up until this point, everybody recognized him as being like a cutthroat badass, hired killer, basically. And he comes out of that Sarlacc pit. He goes into the Sarlacc pit as that, and he comes out kind of something totally different. Like, he learns to live with the Tusken Raiders, and he learns a lot about what it means to be a part of a tribe. He even says it at the end of episode 4. Like, You can only go so far without being without a tribe. Like that's kind of like that's a huge development for a character that was like a lone wolf hired gun. And the show does show you the development of the character from a lone wolf to building a tribe. He's actively building his tribe. Um, which, yeah, he Mandalorians are tribal people. Like, that's why Din Djarin has that mudhorn symbol on his arm. That's a sign of his tribe. The tribe that he was starting, I guess, with the foundling Grogu. Like they're tribal people. Like that's why he in that episode 5 he was talking about rebuilding their tribe from the devastation that had happened, in season at the end of wait, when was that? Into season 1? Yeah, I guess that was the end of season 1. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that at some point Boba Fett would, eschew the lone wolf hired gun lifestyle, especially considering that he's been doing it for so long. He's kind of older. And, it ended with him, almost being dissolved in acid in a Sarlacc pit. It makes sense that he kind of wants to trade out of that lifestyle for something, I guess, more fulfilling to him personally. And I think, that's the whole point of the Sand Raiders being killed by that gang, is like he found that fulfillment. He was happy in that fulfillment. Like he was actually, starting to find peace in his life with the Sand Tribe, and then they were taken from him. They were ruthlessly murdered. That's why he went. That's why he chased him down with the not slave one. I forget what they call it now, but I guess calling his ship Slave One was a no go. But he tracked him down and blew him away because of that. And he's trying to form his own clan now. So I'm not gonna say that he didn't get any like character reveals or character development or anything in this show, because I think he has. I think it's just not. It's probably just not the character development that this particular writer wanted to see. Like there are a number of instances where it was like, I can imagine like an obnoxious Star Wars fan being like, Boba Fett would never do that. Boba Fett would never just sit there and look. He would blast him. Why is Boba Fett letting these people talk to him like this? Why is he letting them walk over him like this? He didn't even let Darth Vader talk to him like this. Like all that sort of stuff. Like I imagine there's a lot of that going on if there is any consternation about Boba Fett's character. But again, it's like, if you're 30, 40 years old, you're not the same person you were 20 years ago. So you got to understand that, like, and it's kind of weird, right? Like, one of the core arguments of this article is that it's just the nostalgia, like, money grab, I guess, is maybe the argument. It's just fan service, they're just pulling out all the old tropes, to placate the Star Wars fandom. But it also seems like the argument is that it's not placating the Star Wars fandom because it's not the Boba Fett that they want to see. Like they saw more, I guess, of their Boba Fett and his guest spots on The Mandalorian than what they're getting on this show, because this show is demonstrably something different than what they may have had in mind for Boba Fett. So, even though I don't think the show is like great, I'm entertained by it. I think it's entertaining. I think it's good enough. Maybe that's not a glowing review, good enough, but I mean, I think it's good. I just think maybe some people kind of have psychotic expectations for it, and one way or another, they just wanted to complain about something. It all adds up to a show that feels uneven at best. I will say that the show does feel uneven, but I don't think it's because Boba Fett doesn't get character development. If not outright directionless, outside evoking nostalgia, again, I just didn't get that vibe, but I might not be the target demographic for nostalgia. Especially compared with the narrative speed of The Mandalorian, as well as that show's desire to introduce new elements to the core mythos of the franchise. half a season in, it's a fair question to ask, what is the Book of Boba Fett about? That's what I said right up front. Right up front, I was like, is the main story important? Because I'm not getting a whole lot of the main story. Like, if you want to complain about the main story not getting a bit of a short shrift, then I can agree with you on that. I think that's true. But I think that most of the character development isn't in that main story. It's in those flashbacks. Given the evidence at hand, it's hard not to answer making fans of the old films happy about seeing their old toys again. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's a new Wookiee. Doesn't that account for something? I guess he came from the comics, from the Marvel Star Wars comics. But, I mean, that guy's running around ripping shit up. Isn't that cool? Don't you like the Wookiee? He fucking ripped that Trandoshan's arm off. You know, I mean, come on, guys. Boba Fett's final 3 episodes? Okay, yeah. I like the show. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. Like, I definitely like The Mandalorian more, but I don't know if... Maybe I kind of agree with some of the vibe of this article, but I don't agree with, like, the sentiments, if that makes any sense. Speaking of Star Wars and Boba Fett, new Star Wars 1313 footage reveals the canceled Boba Fett game we always wanted. A major missing link to the canceled Star Wars TV series called The Underworld. I remember we did a video of that on our channel a while back. There was some test footage that got leaked about The Underworld. A new YouTube video making the rounds revealed a long-canceled Star Wars game would have been the first time that bounty hunter and fan favorite Boba Fett starred his own game. Long before Fett became a fixture on Disney Plus, the game development team at LucasArts began work on an action video game about bounty hunters and the planet Coruscant. As Bloomberg's Jason Schreier reported in his game industry book Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, that project, dubbed Star Wars 1313, morphed wildly over a 4-year span. 1313 started development in 2009, but was canceled after LucasArts shut down in 2013, a casualty of Disney's acquisition of all things Lucasfilm and Star Wars. While we've seen teases of Star Wars 1313 before, especially during its splashy debut at E3 2012, public footage thus far has been limited to the game's brand new bounty hunter heroes. This week's video is the first to show what Boba Fett looked like as 1313's playable hero, a development shift made by George Lucas months before the E3 2012 reveal. Coincidentally, Lucas also demanded that Fett not appear in that public 2012 reveal. Wow, Lucas was that involved, huh? Fett is finally seen taking uncharted steps. The new video comes from The Vault, a YouTube channel that focuses almost exclusively on details and leaks surrounding the canceled Star Wars Battlefront 3 project. The channel's first ever video about Star Wars 1313 pulls primarily from the portfolio of James Zachary, who directed 1313's animation team and led its motion capture department. Since Zachary's Boba Fett videos are marked private and don't have timestamps, we can't be certain how long they've been hiding in plain sight on Zachary's portfolio page. Is there a link to the video? Let's take a look at this. Let's take a wee gander at this. Let us take a wee gander at this. Really? 480 is all it's at? Just doing some walking. Alright, some unfinished textures. Get back here! That's a temporary voice actor in that place, probably one of the developers. Running through a meat market that seems familiar and oddly prescient now. Parkour! Parkour!
Stay on it! Catch up! Don't let him get away!
What is this? What a ridiculous environment. I like how this guy that you're chasing just happens to have access to, like, oh Jesus.
Try to cut him off.
I like the idea, the conceit in video games that, like, you could just hang on by, like, you could jump off of, like, a ledge and just get your fingertips onto, like, a ledge that's beneath you, and, like, the inertia and weight of your body isn't going to just, like, tear your fingers right off of that ledge. Like, what kind of crazy grip strength do you have to have in your fingers for, you know, for you to be able to hold on? Parkour. Well, I mean, I guess that's cool. I mean, it looked neat. It's kind of a shame. I mean, it looked like it could have had some cool, fun solo single-player adventure potential. I would have liked to, of course, obviously, I would have liked to have seen it come out. Man, it's so weird how shitty games look just not that long ago. Oh, I guess it is long. I guess that is that long ago, huh? 2012. God damn, 2012 was 10 years ago. When did we get so old? When did we get so old? Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you liked what I said, what Justin said, if you like the content we're providing, if you had any kind of laughs at all, even if you hate us, if you hate my guts, if you want to stab me, if you want to say all sorts of horrible things to me, cool. Like the video, subscribe. You'll get fed all sorts of shit you'll probably hate. And if you like us, you'll get fed all sorts of shit you probably like. So please and thank you.